Good
Hello,
evening,
everybody.
everybody. Oh, sorry, Nick. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bigfoots Pad Live. I'm Jeremy Metter, and taking the lead for tonight's show, we have. I'll let you introduce yourself, Nick.
All right, my name's Nick. I'm an investigator for Bigfoots Pad Paranormal, and I'll be talking about an interesting topic tonight. I may sound like a lunatic at times, even speaking about this topic. It's quite an interesting one. We're going to be
Mhm.
talking about alien hybrids and alien seeding theory. Jeremy, do you know what that is?
I know a little bit about it from watching different documentaries here and there, but I don't think I've looked as deeply into it as like you or Tim have. I know Tim was
Okay.
saying that's something that he's really been into lately.
Yeah, it's a kind of out there topic, and I mean, trying to prepare and do research for the show, I had to use like Bing and other types of search engines to find information about this topic because they're
Mhm.
it's all on like obscure blogs from 10, 20 years ago trying,
Yeah.
trying to drum up this information. But to talk about this, I think we're going to first get into the historical and mythological evidence
Mhm.
for early contact with aliens. I mean, probably anybody that watches our podcast has seen Ancient Aliens on History Channel
Mhm.
and have an idea of ancient aliens and ancient astronaut theory. But I think those ideas have to be rehashed and talked about in order to set up for the second section where I want to talk about the fact that humans aren't really built for Earth. That's a interesting thing to really wrap your mind around. And then I would like to conclude with contemporary abduction stories
Mhm.
about where aliens have either had intercourse or taken sperm or egg samples from abductees.
Mhm.
So, to begin with the historical and mythological, uh,
Oh, looks like we lost Nick there. All right, so while we wait for Nick to reconnect, um, I guess we'll get started with a little bit of news. I know Nick wanted to go in a different order, but looks like his stream dropped here for a minute. The first news article that I'm going to talk about tonight while we wait for Nick to reconnect, it says mystery surrounds reports of powder falling from the sky all over the U.S. Okay, Nick, there you are. I was doing a little bit of news,
yeah, let's just we'll
some
start
news
off
while
with
you.
the news. Just fighting with the computer as always.
That's okay. So my first article I started to talk about, it says mystery surrounds reports of a strange powder falling from the sky over the U.S. It says several mid-Atlantic states on the East Coast saw reports of a dust-like powder falling from the sky over the last week. It says concerns were raised on Thursday when residents of Maryland, Northern Virginia, and West Virginia began reporting that a strange powder started settling on top of their vehicles. So numerous were the reports that the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection started to launch an investigation. One of the main goals was to determine what the powder was and if it came from dust storms from Texas or New Mexico. Um, it says that's what that, I guess that was their explanation. It says not everyone is convinced that this explanation holds up. However, with some blaming a release of toxic chemicals from a train derailment from eastern Ohio, and others are maintaining that the powder has been dropped by an overflying airplane. So let me do a quick screen share real quick. I guess people shared some of this strange powder that they were seeing.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures and videos. They're pretty interesting.
So this is a quick video from a Twitter account. Looks like it was dusted, like it was driving around in the dirt or something.
Yeah, I know a few years back there was a really big sandstorm and it went through Prim in my car. I mean, not just my car, but all the cars in the parking lot were completely just covered in sand. And this looks very similar to that dust storm we had.
That's weird. So I just wanted to do a quick screen share on that one. So what it looks like to me, I guess I like they were saying Northern Virginia and Maryland, as far as I know, don't have dust storms like they do out here in
Yeah,
Nevada or New Mexico and those kind of places. So I was like, I don't know what to think of that. I don't know if it's just dust.
could be pollen. I mean, there is a lot of pollen back east, and growing up out there, I do remember vehicles being covered in a powdery substance, but it really didn't look like what we saw there.
Yeah, that's weird. So
Now
we
I
are
have.
getting. Oh, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Well, we're talking about things coming out of the sky. You shared with me an interesting story on the phone before we got here on the live stream about some worms falling out of the sky in China, and it rained worms.
That is bizarre.
So I did find a article with a good video showing that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would say if you want to talk a little bit about it, or I don't know too much about it. I just saw the headlines pretty much.
Okay, so this is from an India news organization. It says, worm rain in China. This bizarre phenomenon leaves internet stunned. In a viral clip, what looked like earthworms were seen scattered all over cars and on the streets of Liaoning, probably saying it wrong, in China. And just look at that. These cars are just completely covered in worms. That's something right out of a nightmare.
Almost like biblical, like a biblical plague or something.
Yeah. Citizens in Chinese province of Liaoning were reportedly told to seek shelter after the city witnessed a bizarre phenomenon as worm-like creatures or objects rained from the skies. In a viral video clip, which is down below, what looked like earthworms were seen scattered all over cars and on the streets of Liaoning. People walking on the streets were seen carrying umbrellas to protect themselves from the worm rain.
Mm-hmm. I hear London.
And there's a video similar to what you just showed, except these people's cars are covered in worms.
Yeah, that is weird. So my question is, how would worms even fall from the sky? Because they'd have to be obviously picked up from the ground, from the clouds somehow.
Yeah, it says here, according to the scientific journal Mother Nature Network, the most likely explanation is that they were swept up by heavy winds and then dropped in the city. So,
can you imagine experiencing that though?
That would be nuts. Hey Tim, what's going on?
Hey, not much. Sorry, I was a little late.
That's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, I heard. Yeah, me and Tim have small kids, so yeah, you heard like some screaming. That was my niece. So I have one more news article, but I don't know if you have another one, Nick. Before we get started with today's topic, I was going to say I got one more, and that's
okay. Go ahead. No, that was all I had. I thought the worm story was interesting.
That is weird. I wrote, the U.S. congressman claims that the government is reverse engineering alien tech. It says the Tennessee congressman Tim Burchett is currently no stranger to making out there claims about UFOs. And it says this article's about a paragraph long. It says, speaking during a recent interview with Newsweek, Burchett stated that he believed the U.S. government had recovered a craft at some point, possibly more, and possibly even has alien beings. I think a lot of what's being reverse engineered right now, but we just don't understand it, is what he says, his quote. And he says his claims follow on from comments he made back in January after the Pentagon's Office of the Director of National Intelligence released its long-awaited report on UFOs. And he says, the thing is a huge cover-up. And I just feel that America is ready. We need to know and to stop with all the shenanigans. If you were human and make the turns that have been seen in some of this footage, you would literally turn into ketchup, is what he says. I mean, you would be gone, vaporized. It's not showing a vapor trail. It's something else out of this world. We've been covering this thing up since the 1940s, since Roswell, or even before then, I believe, is what he says.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think about that, Nick? Kind of the
right.
Yeah, it's kind of the typical what we believe. I mean, I personally believe he's right on, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Some covering up going on. That's for sure.
Well, I figured lately I've been kind of on like a reverse engineering kick lately. So I'm thinking that'll be a good topic for a future show.
Oh, definitely,
One of
yeah.
these days. So Tim, Nick's gonna take the lead for tonight's show. So I'm gonna take the back seat for this one. Since this is a topic, I was telling Nick that you and Nick were studying a lot lately.
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying Nick's the main one, but I know you and him were having like little meetings and things to discuss this kind of stuff. All right, so without further ado, I'll kind of get out of the way here and let Nick do his thing, and then I'll pop in every once in a while.
All right, awesome. So I do want to start with a text that most people watching the show and in the world are familiar with, and that's the Bible. And there are passages in the Bible that ancient astronaut theorists believe are talking about aliens, not talking about God or angels. There's an interesting character in the Bible in Genesis that really isn't talked about much, but there's a whole ancient alien mythology built up around him. And that character's name is Enoch. And the Bible itself says very, very little about Enoch, but there's also something called the Book of Enoch, which I'll get into here in a minute.
Mhm.
But the Bible just says of Enoch, it says, and Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So this guy has a few sentences in the Bible, and then later on, there was a book called the Book of Enoch that was kind of like a pseudo biography about this guy, and in it talks about how he was taken up by God into the celestial realm, and he saw these things called the Watchers. Have you ever heard of that? Any?
Oh, I actually did. I was reading about that a couple hours ago. They also, I was going to say, both before I get ahead of myself, I was going to say, you want to talk a little bit about it, Nick? And then I was going to say,
Yeah.
I had some other stuff from different parts of the Bible I was going to mention too.
So yeah, the Book of Enoch is a really interesting piece of literature, and it says, Enoch is a member of the lineage of Seth, who was Cain's brother. He was chosen by God as the best of all humans back then. He walked with God for 300 years after the birth of Methuselah. In the Book of Enoch, he describes being taken to heaven, like I just said, and that's where ufologists draw theories. Many modern ufologists have interpreted Enoch's depiction of being taken up into heaven by Haniel or Anaphiel as an angel is really an alien abduction. Enoch describes being whisked away and riding in a fiery chariot. He writes the chariot was pulled by fiery horses. Enoch travels higher and higher into the heavens and stars. He finds himself in the presence of Shekinah, God in the physical form, in a place that he describes as filled with fiery baths, walls, swords, wheels, and other areas. Some alien theorists believe Enoch was attempting to describe the various lights of panels and technology that he saw. And, this event also with the ascension of Jesus in the New Testament, which would be a whole separate show in and of its own.
Yeah.
People say that Enoch and Jesus were taken up in basically like a tractor beam. And
right. I've heard that before too, that theory.
The people that state these things say that back then, the common person didn't have any idea about aliens and UFOs. So they interpreted those things as being God or angels or demons, other supernatural entities.
Yeah, it wasn't until like the late 1800s where they barely began to use the words like starship or airship,
Yeah. Our modern conception of a UFO really didn't start taking off primarily until the 50s. Yeah, there were some things back in the 1800s where cowboys would see airships and that kind of thing. But even then, they really didn't have the lore about aliens and UFOs like we do today. And this Enochian story gets a little interesting too because it involves Noah. The book of Enoch tells how Methuselah's son Lamech married, and the couple had a baby, Noah, from Noah's Ark. However, Lamech was terrified of his son and told his father that Noah wasn't human. Have you ever heard of that theory that Noah was in fact an alien hybrid himself?
That one I haven't heard. I know from what you were saying, the book of Enoch, that's what you were referring to a minute ago, right?
Yeah, this is all within the book of Enoch.
From what I understand, the book of Enoch was they discovered that with the Dead Sea Scrolls, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or they discovered most of it with the Dead Sea Scrolls, or all of it, one of the two?
Yeah,
I think it was most of it.
Most of it was discovered, yes, with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And historical side note for anybody watching, the Dead Sea Scrolls were like papyrus scrolls that were hidden in jars in a cave over in Jordan, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere in the Dead Sea, yeah.
In the Dead Sea. So the people that put these scrolls there were like refugees that were hiding from the Romans during the Roman Jewish War. But yeah, these books talk about some really crazy things. Like I said, Noah is said not to be human. It says Lamech described Noah as white and red when he cried. He spoke of the baby's hair being curly and white as a sheep's wool. However, the most frightening thing to Lamech was the light that shone from the child's eyes. It was so bright that it lit up an entire house. So the book of Enoch states that Noah was like pale and had like blonde white hair, and he almost had like laser vision, like he was Superman.
Yeah.
He was a gray.
He was a gray. Well, actually, that's what a lot of the ancient astronaut theorists say, is that he was a gray. Some alien theorists hypothesize from Lamech's description and declaration that his son wasn't human, that perhaps Noah was the result of alien genetic engineering. They also point to the text that declares Noah was chosen by God to save the human race, and that was the reason for the genetic manipulation, so Noah could father an entirely new human race.
Well, I watched Ancient Aliens. I hate to refer to that show so much because I'm not really a big fan of it. Because, anyways, I watched an episode of that. They said that when Moses parted the sea, that they claim that was some people think that was some kind of either like a futuristic power, or it was some kind of maybe like he had some kind of a walking stick. People think it was some kind of weird device or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've heard some things on that show that are pretty.
Even UFO Files, I think, back in the day, like did a segment on it too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of on a outlandish topic as it is, but I think it's fun to talk about and to speculate.
Yeah.
There is a funny meme I would like to share in just a moment.
Oh, okay.
If I could get it to go on here.
Now, to further talk about the biblical.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nick. This is my interpretation of the Ancient Alien series. Let me get this to go real quick. Here we go.
Jazz. Let's see this.
Do you see it? History Channel during the day. History Channel at night. That kind of describes. I don't know. I don't mind the show in general. It's just I feel like the original like 2-hour specials. They had like 2 or 3 of them before the series.
I remember that.
Those were actually really good. They're well done and everything. I feel like now they're on like season 10 or 15 or something like that. I feel like it's like the curse of now it's like mostly
they're just dragging it.
I feel like
they're just dragging it.
They kind of ran out of ideas, I think. But anyway, sorry to get sidetracked. Sorry, Nick. You could go back to what you were talking about.
Well, I would like to further corroborate this stuff with another passage from Genesis. It says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. When the sons of God came into the daughters of man, they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So a lot of ancient astronaut theorists state that the Nephilim were aliens. They came down, and this is talked about in the book of Enoch, and they came down and they had sex with human women and gave birth to an alien hybrid race that later on was causing too much trouble. So then there was like some kind of intergalactic war, and the aliens came down and destroyed these alien hybrids, except for Noah, who was chosen by the aliens to further guide the human race.
So one thing I wanted to mention, I only have one biblical verse I wanted to mention. This from Ezekiel. And the quote, this is a quote from the Bible. It says, "I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by a brilliant light. In the center, the fire looked like a glowing metal, and the fire was around what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human." And then, of course, it describes what they look like. So basically, Ezekiel, what it talks about, it says that there's a cloud that looks like flashing lightning, and they said it looked like a glowing metal. So if you want to take that literally, it almost sounds like a spaceship or an airplane or something like that. I don't know if you had that verse on your list, Nick, but
I did. Yeah, no, that's one of the most famous verses that ancient astronaut theorists use, is that Ezekiel verse, because that does not sound like a supernatural phenomena. It sounds like a machine, like you just put in a spaceship, a plane.
Literally, it does.
And again,
well, I know that you and Tim were talking about that same exact verse yesterday, actually, when we hung out, Nick. I'd like to get into that deep conversation here, one of these shows coming up. What was it? Was it you thought it was a rocket and Tim thought it might have been an airplane? Or because Tim said it was on fire. So I remember you and Tim were talking about the possibility of maybe even sounded like a UFO on fire, ready to crash, or maybe it was having some kind of trouble.
Yeah, you definitely could interpret it that way, that it was a UFO that had come down and was on fire, about to crash. That sounds like a lot of descriptions, particularly Ely, with our UFO crash. The crash that happened in the 60s was described as something very similar to what you see in Ezekiel.
Yep.
But another interesting...
Oh, one quick side note. They said that it looked like it was some kind of metal object with either fire or a glow around it. I know some people actually describe UFOs as having a brilliant glow. Like I know one of the Ely objects was glowing purple and yellow, or they said the Kecksburg UFO that crashed in Pennsylvania in the 1960s, that was glowing a slight bluish tint. They said like a blue color. So if you want to take that verse literally, it almost sounds like it might possibly be a UFO of some kind.
Right.
Even if it was an airplane or a blimp, even with some kind of lights on it, to like when we see our airplanes fly around, they have like the safety lights on them to keep they're spotted by other planes.
Yeah.
I was like, so if you want to
some
take
weird alien technology that we're unaware of.
Well, that's true. Well, I don't put it past I don't think the United States is the only government nowadays that has man-made UFOs, if we want to go that route.
No.
But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
Governments across the world are reverse engineering UFOs, and
we're not the only ones. I'm sure the Russians have them. The Iranians supposedly have UFOs that have crashed. The Canadians, I know, and the British have their own stuff going on.
Well, I was going to say
we're going kind of off topic here, so I'll let you go back on topic, Nick.
I was going to say that the Anunnaki that was mentioned in the book of Genesis is a reference that comes from a much older story, the Sumerian tablets. And the Sumerian tablets have a lot of stories that pop up later in the Bible. So there's a story in the Sumerian tablets about a god named Marduk. Mm-hmm. And Marduk became king of Earth or king of Babylon back then. But he got there with the rest of his gods or alien race, and they came down and they wanted to mine gold. So, in order to mine the gold, they found
Mm-hmm.
apes and began to medically engineer a slave caste, essentially, to mine for the gold. And at a point, Marduk became sympathetic to the slaves, which were us, the ape-human hybrids, and he started an alien civil war. This is a story according to ancient astronomers. He started an alien civil war, or a civil war amongst the gods, and long story short, he triumphed and set the humans free, and the humans made him their king.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Nick, I wrote you and Tim a pretty good message for later on in the show in the private chat when you get a chance.
Yeah, and I know there's also theories too that the human race derives like aliens created, like you said, a slave race, or this is a prison planet of sorts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I have heard about the prison planets, and there's also, here's a good article here I have talking about Teotihuacan, which is a temple complex in Mexico that the Aztecs had built to Quetzalcoatl. They dedicated it to Quetzalcoatl. And beneath the temple, they found a large chamber filled with liquid mercury, just like chilling there. And, a lot of people are perplexed as to why there would be a chamber full of liquid mercury beneath this temple. What purpose does it have? A TV show I watched was saying some people state that it's some kind of a fission reactor or a power plant of some sort that the aliens came down to use, and they came in contact with the Aztecs, and the Aztecs subsequently began to worship them as gods.
Yep, so, and then they also say there's other civilizations throughout the planet they think may be related because the pyramids throughout the different parts of the planet. Maybe they were one.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a
theory. Yeah,
an interesting theory.
And then I know there's I was reading, like, again, it sounds crazy, but there's articles about like 2 million-year-old reactors in Africa. Have you guys ever heard of that? And they think they were derived from aliens, and they think that maybe that was the start of real human civilization when the aliens
they have
put
like
us
the
here.
Baghdad battery and some of that kind of stuff. They found that they have no explanation.
Yeah, the Baghdad battery.
For what would be the reason of even having something like that, unless you have something to power, like you're trying to power something. But as far as the temples around the world go, you figure you have in South America, you have in the Middle East, they have
in China.
China, they have the temple mounds over in the Midwest in the United States.
Actually, even up the coast of Japan, it's undersea too. They have one there, the big one.
Mm-hmm. Nick's sharing his screen right now. There we go. Yeah. Sorry to get off topic, Nick.
No. Here, liquid mercury found under Mexican pyramid could lead to King's tomb. Researcher reports large quantities of the substance under ruins of Teotihuacan in discovery that could shed light on city's mysterious leaders. So here's the temple that was built to Quetzalcoatl, and underneath this, they just found a giant chamber, like I said, of liquid mercury. It's definitely an odd feature to be found at an ancient site like this. We're talking about nearly 2,000-year-old civilization. Why would they need something like that?
Oh, yeah. So they're thinking the liquid metal, they're saying they're the mercury. They think that there's no explanation for why it would be under there, especially that amount of it, right?
Yeah, that's what really puzzles the researchers the most, is there's just such a large quantity. It's unfathomable that a advanced, but yet not, advanced not in our contemporary terms, but back then the Aztecs were kind of advanced, which is a fact that a lot of ancient astronaut theorists extrapolate into.
I was talking to you and Tim about this yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
They said the first emperor of China but supposedly in his tomb somewhere, he has a giant lake full of mercury. But I guess they know that was created by people, obviously, because they said it was like some kind of booby trap. But my question is, I know that it's possible to do that back then, but I don't know anything about South American tribes or civilizations, whatever you want to call it, refer to them as doing that kind of thing.
Well, the theorists say that the temple was built to Quetzalcoatl, who in fact himself was an alien. Just like we have the biblical accounts, just like we have the story of Marduk. And then if you look at even the Hindu religion and their depictions of their gods, they look like Star Trek characters. And I'm just going to pull up a poster here real quick showing what I'm talking about.
Here we go. Next screen's being shared.
So here is a poster showing the depictions of the most important Hindu deities, of which there are many. But I mean, you look over here, they have like blue skin, some have multiple limbs. This one has a trunk looking like an elephant, which I believe is worshipped in the Hindu religion very strongly. But they look almost human, but not quite, which is, the example of how we describe things like the Greys, the reptilians, and various other supposed alien species. We just show them to be like those Hindu deities. So overall, we have quite a collection of what could be accurate historical accounts of early contact with aliens. Now that jumps into the next thing, and a question that a lot of people pose is, why would aliens want to come down to Earth and either have sex with humans or use some kind of biomechanical engineering process to create hybrids?
Well, my thing is, I don't know if it's going a little bit off topic. Have you looked at any of the ancient cave paintings that they have from France or from Australia that show some of those? They think they might possibly be aliens or ancient astronauts of some kind.
Yeah, no, I've seen depictions in cave paintings.
I have some. I have some on here. I don't know if you have any, but I have some I was going to show.
Oh, no, you can pull them up for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to show some of those. They're from various places. Here we go. So here it is. So we have, these are from Native American. I don't know if you guys can see them. I'll see if I click on individual ones. So you could buy these photos, but I guess these are from Native American tribes.
Yeah, I've seen these photos before.
I was going to say, they don't know what these things are. They're kind of weird little creatures. I don't know what you would refer to them as. I'm going kind of quick through these. I don't know. What do you think, Nick? What would possibly look like this, unless it's
aliens or deities of some sort?
I believe it to be an extraterrestrial for sure. I mean, just look at it. It looks just like ET. You can't deny the fact of what you're seeing.
This is these cave paintings from Tassili Niger, I think is how you say that. And it says these are from Libya, Niger, and Mali. I guess here's some of those cave paintings.
So yeah, we have more depictions of these humanoid creatures from scattered cultures all across the world throughout different periods of time. It definitely shows that some beings coming from space have been making contact with humans for quite some time and still are. We'll get into that later. I have some good stories about that.
I have a couple more I wanted to point out.
It's like Nick, people also.
While you're talking. Oh no, I was just showing some of these and circling them while Nick was talking.
Oh yeah, just like in the ancient Egypt, people believe that Ra may have been like an alien of some sort.
Yeah, no, I definitely I won't say I'm a believer in the theory, but I definitely think there are some good arguments to be made for
Oh
it.
yeah, I'm the same exact way.
This one I think is one of the most interesting ones.
Who? It's an owl man.
Yeah. I guess they had a couple more on here. I got to go towards the bottom. I guess they're saying so. Probably this one looks like it's wearing some kind of an astronaut helmet of some kind in this one. And then, like I said, this one's one of the coolest ones.
Yeah.
It's from Australia from 3800 BC. So some
Actually,
of these.
there's a guy I
knew.
knew, and he was really interested in history, and he said the Aboriginal Australians have the oldest language and civilization on Earth, and they talk about encounters with aliens, and the depictions that you just showed there, I believe, are from the Aborigines.
A lot of those are. This one's actually from Utah, believe it or not. I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
So, wow. There's one more I forgot to show. I'll show it in just a second. So these cave paintings, why would they have something like that? Or what would make them want to draw, I guess in their sense, monsters? Or what would make them want to draw something like that?
What compels somebody to draw something like that? I think that it's something that they witnessed and experienced, and they expressed it the best way they could in those cave paintings and in the texts that we've been reading, the Book of Enoch, the Bible, and various other legends.
Yep.
The encounters with aliens these people had were just retold from a Paleolithic, Bronze Age perspective.
Right. It's like being 2 years old trying to explain physics. You can't really.
Well, Stanton Friedman said it best. Even if you gave a spaceship to one of these ancient civilizations, they would have no idea how it operates or what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just gonna draw like a bird on a thing and be like, "There you go, that represents the spaceship." And man,
yeah.
So I have one more interesting one. I know a lot of these Hindu temples over in like India, over that way, they have some interesting ones. So this is from, looks like the Cathedral of Salamanca. I guess this is somewhere over in that part of the world. They're saying that that clearly looks like some kind of astronaut or some kind of a figure wearing some kind of suit, but clearly has boots on. And I guess they're saying this was made, the year was on here. It's discovered, it's in the jungles of Belize in the 1920s, and it's from a 3,600-year-old Mayan artifact. And it said some people think that they were carved in the 1840s, people that don't believe in the theory. But I guess they're saying it could be as old as 3,600 years, is what the original sayings were. People that don't believe in it say 1840s. Either way, that's pretty cool, I think.
Well, I was going to say, even if it was, you take the worst case scenario, that thing is carved in the 1840s. There were the fashion around that time looked nothing like that, which looks like a spacesuit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was going to say, people are on there arguing, saying, "Oh no, that wasn't from 3,600. That's from only 200 years ago." I was like, "Yeah, only 120 years before we went to the moon."
Yeah. So even if that was done in the 19th century, that clearly looks like a spacesuit. Thus, it could be logically deduced that whoever made that carving saw an extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Tim's sharing his screen right now.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
This is also believed to be a person believed to be in a UFO or a vehicle.
Oh yeah, I actually saw that on Ancient Aliens a long time ago.
Yeah, me too. And they believe pyramids may have. This is again a long shot theory, but people believe that they were like spaceship landing platforms. See, or like engines to. Again, it's all a long shot, like you said. It's hard to imagine, but.
Well, the thing is, I think what people don't quite understand is I've seen it before where they went in some of these tombs and they found, it looks like little rock sculptures of what look like space people in spacesuits.
Yeah.
They, like Tim was saying, was it? I can't believe I'm going blank here. In ancient Egypt, was it Ra, the one that was torn apart and put all over the kingdom, all over Egypt?
I believe so. Yeah.
Who was
Maybe.
was it Osiris or was it Ra? Anyways, one of the gods was and then we'll get into that a little bit later. I'll look it up while you guys are talking. And Nick's sharing his screen of some of the figures, like I was saying, that they found, it looks like.
So, yeah, here are various statues and depictions of the Anunnaki that we were talking about a few minutes ago. And, I mean, they clearly look like grays. I mean, look, the elongated head, the large eyes, small nose, small mouth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, something I would like to make, Nick, on your show, before I start kind of jumping around to different things around the world, is there any certain way you wanted to go about doing it, or do you want us to just go ahead and share whatever we have, or how do you want to do it?
Oh yeah, you know, it's like a roundtable discussion. You can bring up any pertinent topic you feel would be a contribution.
Yeah.
I was saying, people ask, why would aliens want to come here in the first place? Basically, what's
Right.
Tim wrote something funny in the chat. I was going to show you.
Yeah,
You got to
so
look up.
why would they come here in the first place? Well, for example, here's one story that people point to as being the origin of life on Earth, and that would be life came from Mars. At one point, Mars was covered in lush vegetation. There was ample water and
bacteria.
Bacteria. It had a climate very similar to like South America. It was a hotbed for life. But then at some point in history, it got really cold and dried out. It was an ecological disaster on the scale of something we can't even comprehend.
Oh, yeah.
So some people say that humans or humanoid aliens from Mars left there and came down to Earth, and in order to repopulate, they hooked up with humans, and chitty chitty bang, bang, here we are.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, like they say, again, it's a long shot, but people say, like, the face on Mars, there's pyramids, caves, all sorts of stuff that they say ancient astronauts left.
Well, one of the most interesting, I guess if you want to call it, evidence of ancient astronauts, I don't think this one could really be denied. And whether you're religious or whatever, there's no way you could talk. I don't know if you guys know what the Nazca lines are. They're found in Peru. Yeah. It says they're about 200 miles from Lima. They're 2,000 years old. You have to be up in the sky to see them. They look like ducks, or they look like plants and bats and things. It says there's 70 different animals depicted in these lines. It says they vary from 50 to 1,200 feet in length. So it's about as large as the Empire State Building, basically.
Yeah.
And it says you could only see these from the sky, and you have to be pretty high up, like you're in an airplane, or you have to be high up in the air to see them. So who would they be making these shapes for? Who exactly? Right. Yeah. So that's my thing. Like, who would build something like that? And there is one specific one I wanted to share with everybody. Let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess they'd have to make them as big as they figure they think their gods would see. You know what I mean? They had to make them as big as, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Then there's this one. They call it the astronaut. I don't know if you could see that on there. I could try to make it bigger.
Yeah, I can see it.
You know, I can see it.
Nazca lines, the astronaut. So when you're looking at this, there's a better one. So you see the different Nazca lines. If I could. Let me go back.
Yeah, I've heard a theory that states that they served as kind of like a beacon or a signal, like you were saying, to the gods or to the aliens to show them where to land.
I don't know if you could see how many of them are on there. You could see there's like a whole bunch of them in like a little, I wouldn't call it a little area, but there's a bunch of them in that geographic.
It looks pretty dang big.
But like, who are they? Who would they be trying to get a message out to? I know that's like the big mystery.
Yeah, I know people say like there were like pointing to water sources and stuff, but yeah, I don't know why they need something that big to prove there's a well over here.
Yeah, no,
yeah, it says they're on a high plateau. They said.
Yeah, no, those the Nazca lines definitely get me leaning into believing in the ancient astronaut stuff because there really is no explanation, like you said, as to why they would make a giant etch in the ground of a bird to show where a well was. That makes no sense. So I think that
But it has to be the size of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, just to show where a well. I definitely believe that they have extraterrestrial origins, and they may have even been made by aliens. Again, we weren't there; we don't know. But the oddity level of the Nazca lines just doesn't really mesh up with a hunter gatherer tribe. 3,000 years ago.
Oh yeah, well, the thing about the Nazca lines, it said they actually found a new. This is kind of unrelated. I guess they said that they were chasing a drug smuggler like 10 years ago, and it says that the guy drove off a cliff trying to run from the. I don't know if I call it a cliff, but he drove off of this big hill being chased by authorities. They said he landed on, I guess, in the middle of one of these lines they didn't know existed. So I guess that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a memorable.
Yeah. So you figure, Nick, so this is going to be kind of a crazy question. So if you were going to make your own Nazca lines, I guess, talking to the gods, what would you make? I'm trying to prove a point here. What kind of symbols would you make to someone who doesn't even know what a human is, or what you're going to make? You're going to make something that tells them we're here. These are the things we like to do. This is what some of our animals look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would make I'd make like a car, fish. I'd probably do something maybe like a cheeseburger. Things that
things we like to
or
do.
In ancient times, like you said, that's all they knew were like birds and animals.
Things people like to do, like you put a beer can, a McDouble.
Yeah. maybe odd looking representatives of the human race that really stand out and can grab attention.
Bug eyes and long fingers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that. Speaking of hybrids, we'll get into that in just a moment. We actually used to know someone that was really into that. He would start looking up old stories about people he thought had bug eyes or long fingers and stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit later.
Yeah.
But before we get off the topic of the Nazca lines. So the question I wrote that I wanted to propose to you and Tim, how would they have designed these things to be so precise and without being up high to see what they look like, or I guess double check on their work, or however you want to write that, or however you want to word that? Because you figure if I was making a Nazca line, something that has to be seen from like 10,000 feet in the air, how do I know it even looks like an ant, or how do I even know it looks? I couldn't even draw a circle that needs to be seen from that high. Yeah. Not to mention something that looks like a man or a bat or something like that.
Yeah. How could somebody draw out and carve out those depictions without having a bird's eye view? I don't know, and I don't think it can be done.
So my next question is, the Nazca lines, were these even made by people at all, or were these made by someone else? Or I guess it could go either way, because you would have to be up high to design these.
Yeah.
So was somebody brought up high to look at these, to double check their work, or was somebody up high in the air building these? Or like I said, or we could go revert back to our other theory that someone was on the ground, maybe trying to contact someone up in the air, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, you have to have a bird's eye view, which means you have to be in the air, which, as crazy as it sounds, would lead one to believe that extraterrestrials are the ones that carved the Nazca lines because they have the instruments and the ability to do it. Like you said, you can't even draw a circle on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So
I've heard this for years too. That is a theory that the aliens there was some sort of like communication with them.
Oh yeah. There's a I don't know if I have it saved on here. There's a town called Pumapunku. I got to find where this was. It's in, I believe it's, let me look this up. Pumapunku. We'll get back to this in just a minute.
London's yelling at me downstairs.
Yeah, I saw that on Ancient Aliens. They were saying that this town, okay, Pumapunku. It was discovered in 1549, it says. And this town is it's built by these huge, gigantic pieces of rocks. It supposedly goes back to year 500 or so. And this town, I guess it's built by these giant boulders and these giant rocks. And I'll get a screenshot of this real quick. And these rocks are built they're so close to each other on some instances. Let me see if I get a close one. Here we go. They're saying some of these are fit together so well in some places you can't even put a knife in between some of these blocks, I guess. And they said that they don't know really how these were built. They assume that some of these holes, like in the rock, I call them rocks or boulders, they had some kind of a tool in there linking them to other rocks, or they don't know. But this is over in Bolivia.
Yeah, I've seen this before. It is a really, really weird place.
Yeah, they're not really quite sure
how they were done.
Yeah, and they were saying that some places you can't even put a knife in. There's no mortar connecting these rocks at all, but yet there's no you can't even slide a knife between.
Yeah, everything's so precise.
Yeah,
no, even the ancient Egyptians can do that.
Yeah, no, the building techniques at that place exceed things that we do today. Even, I mean, it's
the verse that I have written on here. I wrote Pumapunku is a series of stone structures in Tiwanaku, La Paz, Bolivia. Visitors often remark how precisely the stones were cut, and it says it's certainly impressive in its size and technology, some people say, and some think that the structures were created by aliens. So just kind of like a quick history lesson on that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting, ties into our topic.
I know we were talking about pyramids earlier, but I forgot to mention this earlier. We're talking about the pyramids of Giza. That's one of the most controversial ancient alien topics there are. Yeah. They have ideas on how they think they were built, but nobody knows for sure. Yeah, which is kind of weird that you could have something that big and no one really knows how it was built. Something I wanted to mention real quick. It says the Great Pyramid lines up almost exactly with the magnetic North Pole, which becomes suspicious when you consider that the ancient Egyptians had no compasses. Also, on the evening of the summer solstice, the sun sets directly between the Great Pyramid and its next-door neighbor when viewed from the Sphinx. For this to be possible, the Egyptians would need to know the date of the summer solstice because the length of a calendar year hadn't been determined at that point. So some people think that this is controversial or it's a little bit too convenient.
Yeah, no, I've heard that before.
Me too.
And what do you think of that, Nick or Tim? How would they have done that, or is it just a coincidence that just happened to be built when it did, or where it was? And
the more you think about it, despite it sounding outlandish, the fact is that aliens probably did come down back then and had some kind of contact with us and imparted their knowledge and probably assistance in building these structures.
Yep, and it's hard to believe too. Out of the entire time humans have been on this planet, like we haven't been contacted once by them, or influenced by any kind by them.
Oh yeah.
And then I'd like to maybe get on to the next segment where people would ask, so you're saying humans and aliens or ancient primates and aliens came together to produce a new species called us humans. Well, we have analyzed the genetic code of human beings, and they found that we're not just pure Homo sapien. There are mixtures of Neanderthal, Denisovan, Homo erectus, distributed throughout the world with different peoples. Like in Africa, they have Homo sapien, Homo erectus admixture. Europe would be Neanderthal and Homo sapien.
Oh yeah.
And the Denisovans are found in Asia, and that's the Denisovans is one of the suspects for the pygmy Bigfoot that you would find there in the jungles.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you're reading. I don't know if you're reading our chat or not.
Yeah, no, I was, and I was just saying that. So we found that we are not just pure human; we have other things going on. To further illustrate, it's like imagine if you took a person and you dropped them off in the middle of nowhere into nature, and you told them they're not allowed to use any kind of tools to survive. How long would that person survive in the elements?
Exactly.
Very true.
So I say that to illustrate the point that us humans, are somewhat alien to the Earth's environment. I don't know if there's a pun intended or not there, but we're not really exactly built to survive the conditions of nature. You know, if you look at something like a bear or a deer or a lion or an antelope or something like that, they're born right from the womb with all the requirements needed to survive. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, and on your topic, Nick, I'm actually looking up right now. It says between 1 and 3% of the population have, for example, Neanderthal DNA in Asia, and most randomly, a lot of East Asians have Neanderthal DNA.
Yeah, I've read that before. So we are already a hybrid species of different hominid creatures from going back tens of thousands of years ago. But what we're trying to say is it's a possibility perhaps that we also have DNA from a species from another planet. And again, I don't know if I believe it necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting thought exercise. And
like, see,
what is that?
Neanderthal.
Oh yeah. I thought you were going to show one of our old acquaintances that looked like a Neanderthal.
I was just going to say, it kind of resembles one we used to have.
Yeah. We used to know this guy that was really ugly, and we used to make jokes that he looked like a Neanderthal. Sorry, that's a little off topic, but that's what I was laughing at.
with his sweet cotton candy hair, but
yeah. Well, while we're talking about alien, I can't say alien human hybrids. So, would you say that the theories say that humans were created in the alien's image, or are they kind of like half aliens, half humans, or we're like our own thing, or?
I would say that.
Or people say a little bit of all.
Maybe we started off as in there, and then we diluted our genes in the years. I don't know.
Well, if you look at, like I said, the creation myths of different religions and cultures throughout history, they depict humanoids coming from the sky and either mating with early humans or doing some kind of magic ritual, biochemical engineering to create the species, to create the human species. I think that it is a possibility that a species from another planet, the Greys, for example, could have come down to us either because they had to get away from a bad situation going on with their planet, or maybe they were just curious. Because, I mean, humans, we're curious. We like to explore and tinker with things all the time. So a far more advanced and intelligent species would have levels of curiosity, I believe, to just go out and explore the stars and mess with different planets and civilizations. I personally think if this theory is true, we are some kind of a species where the aliens inserted some of their genetic code into a primate, whether it be a chimpanzee or, you know, the so-called missing, and that hybrid evolved over time into what we are today.
Oh yeah. So my thing is, when you hear about people getting abducted in some of these stories, it's not common for people to say that they wanted human semen, or that women say that they were pregnant and then they weren't later on, or the aliens said they wanted to take their eggs and stuff like that. What was it I was going to mention? So something that's interesting as far as that goes. I don't know if the audience is familiar with the Travis Walton alien abduction story. He says that he was abducted and brought onto a craft. This is from the Sitgreaves National Forest over by Snowflake, Arizona. He says that he was actually brought aboard a craft, and he woke up, and if you want to skip ahead, he woke up on an operating table, and he said that there were aliens trying to do some kind of procedure on him, but I guess he had woken up before they got to do the majority of whatever their procedure was. So I'm trying to think of the quick version to word this. So he wakes up. There are several aliens surrounding this table. So he kind of scares the aliens away. The aliens look like your typical grays. They kind of run off. So they come back, or I would say, let me take a step back. So the aliens kind of leave the room, and he and Travis leaves whatever room he was in. And eventually a man in a spacesuit comes along. It looks like a typical NASA looking spacesuit, except for this. Travis said that the man looked human. He said he looked human, except for he had strange eyes. He said his eyes were, Tim's on mute saying something. They said that his eyes.
I said his eyes were different. Sorry.
Yeah, he said that they were like a strange shade. And he says that they looked, something about the shape of them was slightly off. And he was saying that he actually followed this, what do you call it, a creature or this human being. He followed this man. I guess he was scared of the regular alien. So he kind of trusted this being, I guess you would call it, because it looked like him. And he says that this man eventually brought him into a different craft, or a different room in the craft. And there was other ones that looked like the costumes that Greys wear, the skin tight, silver looking coveralls. And he says that these ones look kind of like Norwegian men. He said they were like blonde haired, blue eyed people. He said they were really good looking people, and that they were muscular, like physically fit, almost like what a human in peak performance would look like in like their 20s. And I guess he said that he was held down by these people. They put some kind of a mask on him, almost like he was getting surgery, and you have the anesthesia was put on him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in that sense, yeah, the Travis Walton abduction, I don't know if you call that a hybrid, or if that was the real aliens playing some kind of mind tricks on him to make his mind think that they were people, or what the deal was. But I guess Travis Walton claims that there was some kind of a hybrid that he thinks he was dealing with.
Well, I actually have a pretty good story. It's a little more salacious than that one, but I wanted to go back to the earlier point saying that humans aren't really, we're very alien to this planet ourselves. And there are different types of evidence that you can find in our anatomy. Like, for example, blood type. Do you guys know your blood types?
I don't at all. Do you?
Okay, I know mine because I donated blood a while back, and they sent me a donor card. I'm an A negative, and people with negative blood types only represent 10 to 15% of the human population. Most people are O's or A positive, B positive. Only 10 to 15% of the population on Earth has a Rh negative blood type. And ancient astronaut theorists really use this as a piece of evidence for their argument, because they say that the Rh negative blood type comes from aliens who came down and made hybrids with humans. And I guess that's a little interesting, considering I'm A negative, so I guess that means I'm from outer space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the largest concentration of people with the Rh negative blood type is found in the Pyrenees Mountains in the Basque country. And the Basque people, the culture, throws off scientists and historians because nobody knows where they came from.
Yeah.
Their language is completely different to anything else.
Their culture, everything.
And coincidentally, that's where my paternal lineage on my dad's side comes from, is around Basque country, not in it, but like right on the periphery.
I don't mean to laugh, Nick, but at first I thought you were going to say my dad's lineage comes from aliens and my mom's comes from Earth. So I thought you were going to say that. I thought that's what you were going to say. I was trying not to laugh. I thought you were going to say my dad was an alien and my mom's was human.
No.
Did you think that's what he was going to say to him?
Get down, London.
I come. Take me to your leader. I come in peace.
Yeah.
But
well, I was looking in the private chat, and I was writing on there. Didn't you you donated? I think it was you donated your blood to the blood bank you were talking about.
Yeah.
But didn't you meet someone there that was part of like the student union at the was it? I'm trying to think what that university was called you went to in Cleveland.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Ashland. Yeah, didn't you meet a guy at Ashland that he thought that he had been abducted and saw a hybrid or something? You were saying.
Yeah, I knew a guy at Ashland University where I attended for a year. He was quite eccentric, and he had a pretty good story where he said him and his buddies had gone out one night into the woods, and then a light was coming from the woods, and out in rural Ohio, which the forests there are very dense. And he said they'd been drinking and partying a little bit, so they were like, "Yeah, man, come on, let's go see the lights." And they went to the light, and they blacked out and woke up laying down in a field. Whether were they abducted by aliens or did they just get blackout drunk? I don't know. It was
Sorry, I don't know what made me think about that. Yeah, I don't know. I was writing about it in like the private chat a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, sorry to throw you off, Nick, but yeah, and I was thinking, what do you think of the possibility that maybe these alien human hybrids? What if they're actually not from another planet? What if they were, like some people say, what if they were us from the future? Like maybe for some reason, I don't know if maybe the way we look changes like thousands of years in the future.
Or our genes are so diluted that they come back in time or something to reproduce. I've heard that too.
Yeah, as a thought exercise, they could be time travelers. And and if you look at a linear progression of how we as a species have evolved, it does make a little sense. Back when we were an early Paleolithic species, we had large body hair. We were large, we had a lot of hair, and we were very ape-like. But as we have become more domesticated, so to speak, we've lost the body hair, we've become weaker, and even our skulls have gotten smaller and our brains have gotten so maybe in the future what we think are grays are just simply evolved humans from 1,000, 2,000 years from now.
Oh yeah.
Where we have a very large mental and brain capacity, but our physical prowess and appearance wouldn't be as it is now, for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, while we're on the topic of kind of like the alien human hybrid thing, I want to share my screen really quick. Have any of you heard of the Star Child skull that they found in Mexico?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we had some shows on it before.
Yeah, so here's a picture of the skull for our audience members that haven't seen it before. I guess they said it was the 1800s at some point. The Star Child skull, they think it's either a malformed human skull or some kind of alien skull. And there's a guy named Lloyd Pye. He's like an investigator. He claims to have obtained the skull from a guy named Ray and Melanie Young from El Paso, Texas. The skull was supposedly found in a mine in 1930, about 100 miles southwest of Chihuahua, Mexico. Buried alongside the skull was a normal human skeleton that was exposed and lying supine on the surface of the tunnel. Claims the skull to be a hybrid offspring of an extraterrestrial and a human female. So we could go around and around and around with what they think it is, or what's known and what's not known. But what do you think about that, Nick? Do you think that could just be some kind of a birth defect, or do you think if there was such thing as a I guess there's controversy surrounding this, so they're saying some people believe that might be an alien.
Yeah, it could be evidence of a alien human hybrid, or I mean, there was and there are practices of when a child is an infant, they like wrap things around its skull and they make it develop that, weird bulbous shape. So it just could be an example of a cultural practice where a group of people wrap something around the baby's head and made it grow, get large and bulbous for whatever reason, be it religious or I can't really articulate why they would do that, but something that I think they do it in Africa still. Where have you ever seen they put like the neck rings on them?
Oh yeah.
Make their necks elongated.
Well, they said that there's some tribe where they make their heads along, almost like a cone head, like the but not that extreme. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like King Tut and stuff too.
Yeah. What do you call? I don't really know enough about the Star-Child skull to kind of really debate about it, but I know what was it? That was a big talk in the late '90s to early 2000s. That was all over TV.
Remember that. Well, I do have a good story here about a famous abduction that occurred in the 1950s in Brazil, and it was Antonio Villas Boas. Have you guys ever heard of that guy's story?
Oh no, I haven't before.
Oh, they actually credit this guy's abduction to being one of like the foundational stories that kicked off the whole UFO phenomena.
Huh.
So basically, there was this guy, Antonio Boas. I'm going to share this screen. It's got some interesting pictures that depicted this event.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go.
I would like to get some kind of expert on our show that talks about alien hybrids. I was looking online while you're talking. There's some pretty good authors on Amazon. I was thinking,
yeah, we really should
try to get one of them on the show. Okay, I brought your screen up, Nick.
Okay, so this guy, Antonio Villas Boas, was just a subsistence farmer in Brazil. And one day he was out in his field and a UFO had come down. And the aliens came out and approached him. And obviously he was a little freaked out, I'm sure. And he tried to get away, it states, and this is some drawings that were done of the craft that abducted him. But he tried to get away. However, he was captured by the aliens and they drug him off into the spaceship. And he stated that he was afraid for his life. I would be. I mean, they took him aboard and they did the various different tests and examinations of him and checked them out like, we would do to a wild animal. However, the most interesting part of the story I'll read over here is where he talks about when a alien female, that's what he says, it was a female, had approached him and they had intercourse. It says, after a while, a rustle at the door distracted me from my thoughts. I looked around the room and saw that a woman was slowly approaching me. She was completely naked, just like me. I was speechless, and the woman seemed amused by my expression. She was very beautiful, but a very different beauty from the woman I had met. Her hair soft and light, even very light as if it was bleached, was parted in the middle. She had large almond blue-shaped eyes. Her nose was straight.
Mm-hmm.
High cheekbones gave the face a peculiar shape. It was much wider than that of Indian women of South America. Her sharp chin made the face very pointy looking and triangular. She had thin, slightly prominent lips, and her ears, which I did not see until later, were exactly like those of our woman.
Yeah.
And there's a artist depiction of
she's very beautiful.
The way Tim worded it.
So basically, he goes on further stating that him and the alien woman approached him and pinned him down and did her thing. And after they were finished, she got up and then she motioned on her belly like, a baby was going to be in there. So
that's not weird at all.
I mean, that's just a really, really quick summary of the story. And I had to leave out a
it's
lot.
Very interesting. I've actually never heard that one before.
It's an interesting story if you look it up and read about it. It's probably one of the craziest abduction stories I've ever heard. And
yeah.
But it does show that an alien species came down. They took this man from the field and, had a mate with one of the females of their species. And
he's just working in the field, gets abducted to have to go. They're like, it's not a bad day of work at all.
You get abducted and you got to sleep with. I mean, you said she was beautiful.
That beautiful thing. And then just goes and just walks off.
Yeah, and that's basically what she did. She pointed to her stomach after they had finished, and she disappeared, and the aliens dropped them back off in the field. So it seems that their main purpose for abducting him was for seminal fluid extraction.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, I'm sorry to cut a little short. I probably got to get going here, but my daughter's being a nightmare.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm looking online. I found some.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm looking on Amazon. I'm seeing some pretty cool people I'd like to get on our show.
Yeah, no, I definitely think someone who has studied this topic very extensively would be a good person to talk to and could really shed light on it for us. And I do have another guy who has some interesting stories about his one-night stands with aliens. This one's a little more recent. I think this guy's stuff happened in the 90s, I believe. It says, this guy paints the sex he allegedly has with aliens. When he was 17, David Huggins says he lost his virginity to an extraterrestrial.
Weird. Yeah.
And that's this guy here, and he painted what allegedly happened to him. You see, here's the alien girl. She's got him down in the field.
Yeah. That guy on the right says that happened to him?
Yeah, this guy right here. He says this alien woman came down and had her way with him. He says, when I was 17, I lost my virginity to a female extraterrestrial. The 74-year-old says in a documentary about love and saucers. It's a book we might have to check out. That's all I can say about it. The coitus in question allegedly went down in 1961 so this was a little later than the last one, but not too much. When Huggins was a teenager living on his parents' farm in rural Georgia. It wasn't the first time extraterrestrials had appeared to him. He had been seeing strange creatures since he was 8. But on this day, as he was walking through the woods near his house, an alien woman appeared and seduced him. I thought, if anything, I'd be losing it in the backseat of a Ford, something like that, but it didn't work out that way. He is. I mean, he's got
My question is, say he really did paint that, right? Who would buy that art? Like, why do you want to hang that in your house?
I could see us doing it.
Oh, that's true.
It'd be funny. I could see one of us doing it.
So I'm getting a text. let's see. Yeah, so I'm getting a text from one of my coworkers. He's asking me, this is going back a little bit. He says, can we discuss dragons and why there are depictions of dragons all over the world? He says, are these or were these real creatures people were seeing in Europe, Asia, and Africa? And I guess what he's trying to get at is, as far as ancient aliens go, he's trying to say, were dragons some kind of ancient alien, or were they, I guess, some kind of like people say that there were aliens are being sighted by all these cultures. He's asking, would dragons be? Could you say the same thing about dragons or something like that? I guess is what he's saying.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you're going to take the position that dragons existed, that they would have been or are some type of reptoid alien species, because you have all those depictions and statues and temples and whatnot to dragons for a very long time, and then all of a sudden it just disappears off the historical record. So perhaps the dragons were reptoids that had come down to us. I mean, I definitely think there are multiple alien species, and we probably have a very small idea about them. You know, we have like the grays, the reptoids.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two main ones people mostly talk about, but there's a few other ones I can't recall off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah. I know there's a guy that I would like to get on our show. We talked to him a long time ago, Bill M. Tracer. I'd like to get him on our show.
He was always a fun time, and
he was on our show like what 2 or 3 times on our old show.
Yeah, Bill, if you're out there and you come across us, we want you back on our show.
For sure.
Those are some very informative and fun shows that we had you on.
I'm gonna write you in the private chat, Nick. I actually just came across. He has a website that actually has all the links to his various social media on here. It's like, I think I'm actually probably going to write that guy tonight, believe it or not.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, so we're always looking for, this is kind of a little bit off topic. So we're always looking for interesting guests for our show. If you know of an interesting guest, or if you have an idea for a show that you want us to do, we're always open to suggestions. Again, I'll put the banner up on the screen for a minute. If you do have an idea for a show or a guest, email us at bigfootspad@yahoo.com, and we'll see if we could reach out to whoever you have in mind, or even if you want to be the guest on the show, you personally want to be the guest. You got a good idea, we'll put you on the show. We've done it before.
But, you know, and here's another point I wanted to stick into how humans are kind of an alien species. Allergies. Human beings are a unique species on this planet with allergies to literally almost anything you can think of, be it food, pollen, dust. It doesn't make a lot of sense for a species to be that allergic, or to have the environment be that hostile to a species body if it's a native species to that environment.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense at all. Like if you remember that movie, what was it, Signs?
Mm-hmm.
With the Mel Gibson one, where the aliens came down from another planet and their weakness was water. If they touched water, it would act like sulfuric acid and burn their skin off. So an alien seeding theorist could argue and say, yeah, we were put here by the aliens. We're part alien ourselves because our bodies aren't really meant to be in this environment. And allergies are a manifestation of that. An allergy is simply your body and immune system freaking out for really no good reason.
Oh, yeah. So as far as allergies go, so I know some animals could have allergies too.
Yeah.
So do you mean like the allergies come because people are used to living a certain way, or that type of thing, or like on another planet, for instance, or maybe wherever humans were engineered from once they got here, the conditions were not what they were expecting, possibly.
Yeah. Again, I'm just taking this. I'm taking a far out topic, and I'm even taking it farther. But
Yeah.
You could argue that if humans are from or a part of us, part of our bodies, our DNA, whatever part of our being comes from another planet, it would be logical to see our bodies not being treated very well by the environment we're placed in. And we do see that because, like I said, other animals can have allergies. If you have a pet, I'm sure your dog or cat or whatever does have an allergy to something. It's not unheard of, but Homo sapiens are, have a ridiculous list of different things we can be allergic to, and no other animal on this planet has something like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You could deduce that Homo sapiens, or at least part of our being, isn't from this planet because our body freaks out in the conditions of the environment, and it's not just something that popped up recently in history. I was just reading a brief history of allergies before the show, and they were describing, allergic reactions going back to like the time of Socrates, and he was talking about some Greek king that ate some strawberries and got hives. So, allergic reactions are a piece of our biology that could show that part of us, or maybe even all of us, comes from a different place, a different planet altogether, because we're not really built to survive in this environment. We have to be very creative to do so. We need tools, we need shelter.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, if you look at a wolf is born, a wolf has the instinct to go out and hunt. It's got fur to protect itself from the elements, and a wolf can survive and thrive once it's raised from a pup into adulthood. But a human, we have to get very creative to survive on Earth. And if we never did get creative, we would have been wiped out a long time ago.
Yeah. I was thinking, as far as allergies go. So, Nick, you said that there's people on, I don't call it the internet, but for lack of a better term, you said there's people that think that we came from that they're not really came from that because people have allergies, that we're the ancient aliens, like we weren't engineered properly.
Yeah, well, no, it's the people, the literature that I read preparing for the show state that allergies are a sign of us having extraterrestrial origin, because Earth is not like where we came from. So if planet Nibiru is or Alpha Centauri or wherever, that planet might have been better suited for us to live on, and we would not have as many allergic reactions on that planet as we do here on Earth. But because we are an alien species to the Earth, they say, that's why we have all these allergic reactions.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing Bill's. I'm writing him on Facebook right now.
No, just to draw a historical parallel, I mean, when the conquistadors came over and they went down into Central America, they brought with them, like smallpox and other types of diseases that the Mayans and Aztecs didn't have any immunity to, and it nearly wiped them out. So the Spaniards were aliens to that environment, and I'm just, for the sake of a thought experiment, saying that, except across an interstellar scale instead of just from one continent to another.
Well, so my quick question is, so besides allergies, are there, I guess in the humanoid form, what are some of the other things you were saying that you were reading about where people said we weren't possibly engineered for this planet? If that's true, I guess is the best way to word it.
Yeah. Yeah. like I said earlier, Rh negative blood seems to kind of just pop up out of nowhere, and scientists, usually credit it to Darwinian evolution and a mutation, but some of the people out there in the literature I read stated the Rh negative blood type comes from an alien species, and they came down and made a hybrid with early humans, and thus the Rh negative blood type's a remnant from that initial population.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Sorry, this chair's really uncomfortable. I have to keep like jumping around here. So as far as ancient aliens go and the reptoids, I'm getting distracted. I was writing Bill. So do you think that all of these civilizations that are seeing these strange beings that they're painting on these cave walls, that they are writing it down in written history? So real quick, so before we do I guess this will be part of our final closing statements. What do you think are the odds that this actually happened, or what do you think are the odds that even if you don't believe in all of it, what do you think about some of this possibly have happened?
Reading and preparing for the show, and now just kind of talking about it, I'm a lot more open to the alien seeding ancient astronaut hypothesis than I was before, because I really didn't know too much about it. I just had seen, Giorgio and Ancient Aliens just going, it's aliens to everything. But when you really look at, the way we're made up as a species, as people, and you look at the cave paintings and the Nazca lines and various other monuments of history, it lends you to believe that we made contact with alien species, in the past, and then I believe we still do now. We look at the abduction stories like Travis Walton or that Antonio Boaz guy. We still have encounters with them now, and maybe as we speak, someone's getting abducted by a UFO. I don't know. There's a very big place for a lot of things going on, so I definitely think we have had contact and have continual contact with extraterrestrials. The degree and the extent of that contact, be it just, a physical encounter, or are they mating with us? I don't know, but I'm definitely a lot more open to the possibility than I was before the show, because I just didn't know about it.
Oh, me too. I think I don't necessarily believe that every little piece of the ancient astronaut theories. I do believe that it would be ridiculous to think that we've never had aliens, especially in ancient civilizations, ancient times, come down here and talk to us or interact with us. Because back in what do they really have to lose in the old days? Like when you think about it, there's no big time governments or anything. It's not like you're going to have big repercussions unless you start killing people or something. But I think it's a possibility that they could have come down here. There are some really good points as far as them coming down here or historically at least visiting us. And I don't think everyone that's ever written about that kind of thing is crazy, especially like we said, like some ancient Egyptian. What the hell does he have to lose, or why the hell would he draw a guy in looks like a NASA spacesuit back in the pre-medieval times?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at the evidence on hand, it really shows you we had an encounter back then with somebody that was dressed in something that looked like a spacesuit. And just look at it for what it is, and that would be an alien.
Oh, yeah. So, well, before we wrap up this show, I do want to make a quick mention of next week's show. So next week's show, we are starting something different. We're kind of changing it up a little bit. Next Sunday, we're going to do our show instead of Saturday. It's going to be on 3/19, March 19th at 2 in the afternoon. We're going to do a daytime show. We're going to have the UFO brothers on our show. The UFO brothers, they are a duo of two brothers that mix comedy with UFO investigating, and they're going to go on our show. We're going to interview them. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be something a little bit different than what we've done so far.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh yeah, they're going to be the first in a series of interviews that we're going to start doing. And again, it's going to be next Sunday at 2 in the afternoon. If you like this show and you like some of the other shows that we do, I'd like to mention, hit that like button, hit that share button, share it to any websites or any social media that you may have. Definitely try to subscribe to our show or have other people subscribe to our show, however you want to. Anything you can do to get the word out. Our show just started out about a month or two ago. The show is actually doing pretty well with our stats. So we're not number one on YouTube or nothing, but we're rising up there. Oh yeah. So we are going to end tonight's show here in just a minute after Nick says the closing remarks. Nick, I would like to have you, when I end the broadcast, stay on camera real quick, and then I'll talk to you for a second about next week's show. In private after this one's done.
All right. So tonight we talked about ancient alien contact and alien seeding theory, where the aliens came down from outer space and mated with pre-man to create humans, and we're an alien hybrid species. It was kind of a topic, and we tried to cover all the different angles. It's made me somewhat of a believer in the theory. But I would just like to wish everybody out there a good night, a good weekend, and the work week's coming up. So just, stay strong and stay safe out there.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Sunday.